So classic character profile this week is probably one of my favourite characters over the last sort of 10 years. They'd be in my top 20, I reckon, over the last 10 years. This is all linked to the Steve storyline at the moment because he's going through a bit of a rough patch with Michelle, current girlfriend, and I thought we'd link in and look at one of his old girlfriends, Karen McDonald. Well, old wives, I guess is actually true. Karen McDonald. Now, this was a relationship that I really used to enjoy watching. They had such a chemistry, Suranne Jones and Simon Gregson, that I still don't particularly think that he's got with Kim.
No, I agree, and I quite like Karen because she reminds me of Becky.
Yeah, they were quite similar, weren't they? There were differences between them, which you can kind of talk about later. But Steve and Karen, she would nag at him, but they were kind of both equals in the relationship, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And there were still times when they were happy together and having a good time, and it was those two against whoever. But Steve and Michelle, it's always
they've never really gelled, have they? It's really weird.
No, they've never. Yeah, particularly bonded together or had to fight together, team up together properly really, as a couple. Really. But Karen McDonald this week then. So let's talk a bit about her background. Her parents were Malcolm and Margaret Phillips, and she married Steve McDonald first in 2001 and then again in 2004. She first appeared on the 21st of June 2000 and left us at Christmas time, 26th of December 2004. All in all, she was in 494 episodes of Coronation Street, which make her the 87th most featured character ever.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, I'm glad she's on the top 100. She is played by Suranne Jones. Suranne had previously been on Coronation Street before. She, like many of the others, she was playing somebody called Mandy Phillips in 1997, who was one of Chris Collins' girlfriends. And in between then, she got a role in a Maltesers advert. Do you remember her being in a Maltesers advert?
No.
I can't remember either, but apparently she was. And she also auditioned for the role of Gina in Coronation Street.
You used to like Jesus then.
No.
Yeah, she was my first favourite character.
Yeah, when you started watching it, so it could have been different with Suranne Jones playing it.
It could have been, yeah.
Yeah. So 1975 she was born, apparently into a very religious family, although we don't find out too much about Karen's backstory until quite far into it, sort of towards her end of the time on the show. But she was made to go knocking on doors trying to convert people until she was 14. And I can't remember whether they said it was proper Jehovah's Witness, but it sounds a bit like that.
Yeah.
So she started going round to her friend Linda's house, and this is Linda, who ended up being Linda Baldwin. And so she would go around there to smoke and watch TV and everything until Dad found out, called her a whore, beat her up, and then she moved in with Linda, and her parents disowned her. So she had a bit of a rough upbringing.
A little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah. So in 2000, she arrived on the street and she was taken on at Underworld. And that year, by the end of the year, she'd had flings with Vikram Desai and Peter Barlow. Her first main year was in 2001 when she started dating Steve McDonald. And it was quite funny beginnings to that storyline because Janice Battersby had bet her £10 that she couldn't get him to put a ring on her finger. So the first time Steve and Karen got engaged, it was all because of a funny bet. And it worked. She was able to convince him to propose in front of everyone at the Rovers. Both of them thought that the other one would back out, but they wouldn't actually go through with it. So they got engaged that way. They surprised everybody when they got married at the Weatherfield Register office that year. Went on honeymoon in Florida for 6 weeks, and then they did realise that they actually loved each other after all.
Ah, in 2002, she was fired from Underworld because she couldn't get on with her new boss, Joe Carter, and she gets a new job at Elevation, which is an upmarket furniture shop that she finds when she's just pursuing the Posh and Beck's lifestyle.
Yeah, that was very of the moment because Posh and Beck's a big thing back then in like the early 2000s.
Oh, they still are. They're a role model for everybody in the UK. I don't know a single person who doesn't model everything they do on Posh and Beck.
We certainly do. Well, Karen ended up like getting a haircut and everything. I think Steve didn't quite like the idea of having to go through all that. But yeah, she wanted to go on to bigger, better things. It turned out that they were going to go to live in a new posh flat, but there was going to be a Bale hostel built right there, and I think that was a Richard Hillman development, if I remember him rightly. So they withdrew their offer on it, but she refused to return the £2,500 sofa that she'd got for it, even though it ended up being too big to get up the stairs of their old flat at number 12. So they were stuck with this sofa out in the middle of the street and ended up living in Eileen's house because Jason and Todd swapped it out for their old sofa. Karen's high-flying career at Elevation didn't last for very long. She was sacked for being too common, and then by the end of 2003 she was back working at Underworld again. So 2003, this was a time when I started to go off Karen because she started to get involved with Joe at Underworld, and I really liked the partnership between her and Steve, and I thought they worked really well together. But 2003 she got promoted to supervisor by Joe. Although she did attempt to resist his advances, she eventually started an affair with him after discovering that Steve had had a one-night stand with Tracy, and this is the one that where Amy came from. So Joe's plan was to steal the factory away from Mike Baldwin. So Karen's job was to forge checks for him for a fake company, but they were rumbled in the end of the day. Mike rumbled them, he drove them out of Weatherfield, and the pair split up. But Steve tracked them down and they reconciled, Steve and Karen did.
Oh, she decides that she and Steve should pretend to fall out so they can get divorced and then they can get married again, and then they can have a big ceremony.
I thought this was a hilarious storyline. After everything that had gone on between Karen and Joe, which I didn't like at all, the whole pretending to split up so they could get remarried for a big ceremony was hilarious, because it all involved like with Sally throwing Tim's stuff out the window, there was like Karen throwing things out the window, and they were having these big public arguments, but then kind of like winking at each other. And there was a funny one where I think, do you remember when Eileen did she punch Steve or something like that because she thought that he'd been an idiot, and then his eyes were spinning like fruit machines, and then Steve and Karen give each other a little sheepish thumbs up through the window. It was quite funny.
He gets fed up with it eventually and says they are going to get divorced, but they're not going to bloody remarry.
Yeah, because it's too much hassle.
And she tries to stop the proceedings, but they go through anyway.
Yeah, they go through, they get divorced, but then Steve decides that actually they are meant to be together, so he surprises her with a romantic canal trip where he proposes again.
So she throws herself into this extravagant wedding preparation. It sounds so familiar,
including
a carriage, swans and a harpist.
I think there must be people at Coronation Street who just think
They really want a carriage, swans and harpist, and their other half just is not getting the hint.
That's what makes a perfect wedding.
And I think that I'm quite surprised that Steve never gave Michelle any tips for planning this wedding. He should have been like, I know someone who does swans.
Yeah. So this is at a time when Tracy was starting to get all interfering, because she was pregnant with Steve's baby, so Amy. So and she was determined to get back with Steve. She thought that Steve was the perfect man for her and everything. So she decided to cause a bit of mischief and tried to stop this wedding happening. She cancelled the flowers. She phoned up the venue pretending to be Karen and cancelled it. But despite this, Steve managed to find out, and the wedding still went ahead at Walcott Manor. But Tracy turned up and ruined the day by revealing that Amy was actually Steve's baby, because everyone thought it was Roy's baby at that time, didn't they? Because of do
you think this is why Tracy wanted this wedding that she had?
Why?
Because I don't know. She obviously always thought that she would be the one. She kind of imagined herself in Karen's shoes in that ceremony, didn't she?
Mm.
So this is her opportunity when she was getting married to Rob to sort of relive her dream.
Yeah.
Of actually being
the rivalry
one.
Between her and Karen is still going on.
Yeah.
She doesn't even realise. But Karen and Steve get married, even though she has a bit of a scrap with Tracy after everything that happened. And then we start to see the end of the year, the beginning of the end for Karen, because in August her dad Malcolm turned up on the doorstep with the news that her mum is on death's door. And because
at death's door. Not on death's door, that's like at the end of Titanic, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Karen didn't want to go and see her because of everything that happened. She was sort of blanking her parents. They had this horrible upbringing where they were making her go around the doors, knocking on the doors, and then the dad had beat her up. So she didn't want to do anything. And then her mum died the following week, and that kind of pushed Karen to the brink of depression and madness a little bit. So she thought that God was punishing her. So her religious sides came back, and I think at the time I thought it seemed to come a little bit out of nowhere, that they were just making up this backstory that was a bit silly, but I don't know. She gave up smoking, she gave up drinking, all of her expensive Posh and Beck's clothes she bagged up, and Steve was able to convince her that even if she wasn't the best daughter, she's still a great wife, so she was okay after that. So that with renewed interest, or sort of renewed relationship, they decide that they're going to try to have a baby, but it couldn't because she was barren. Barren Karen.
Just like Becky. So I think Steve's shooting blanks.
Yeah, maybe it's Steve all along. Yeah, I thought that was quite funny when Tracy kept goading her about being barren Karen. I thought that was quite a good little rivalry they had going there, and the rivalry led up to everyone appearing on a game show. Well, everyone apart from Karen. Tracy and managed to, I can't remember how it happened, but they all ended up being on this Top of the Tree game show, which is like a little Family Fortunes kind of thing, and Tracy managed to trick Steve into going because she was like still trying to desperately get back with him, and Steve had to answer a question about shoes, and Karen unwittingly helped out when he phoned her up, but they managed to win a car after all of it, and then Karen found out eventually what had happened, and she wanted the car, and Tracy wanted the car, so they were both trying to claim ownership of it, but neither of them particularly using it. And the car came in, played into her downfall really at the end, because in November, Karen finally got a bun in the oven. She became pregnant, but during a Christmas party that year, she miscarried and went a little bit crazy afterwards because she stole this car, drove off with Amy in the back, although I don't think she knew that Amy was in the back at the time, went to the red wreck, set fire to it, and then Tracy thought that Karen had burnt Amy alive, tried to kill her, but it turns out that she was with Royal along, so it was okay. And Steve told Karen that enough was enough, had enough, threw her out on Christmas Day. And that was sadly the last we got to see of Karen. And I didn't really like the way that it ended for Karen, because I always thought that she was quite a cool character, and when they had her leave that way, sort of going a bit driving crazy, she was driven crazy, and she just seemed to be almost a different character by the end. It was like a character that always used to be so kind of positive and funny, and just to see like her turn into a raving lunatic almost, and that's the last we saw of her. It's always a shame when things like that happen.
Yes, it is.
What did you think of Karen?
I don't remember how long I saw her in it, to be honest.
You must have seen... I know, when did it say she came into it? 2000. So you started watching it in 2001, 2002, so you must have just like seen
I feel like I hardly saw any of her, really.
You don't particularly remember her?
No, because I didn't watch it when you were in France.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You probably only did see about a year when you were.
But I do remember her liking. I do remember liking her, and her having a sort of good, interesting personality and everything.
Yeah, she was one of the most popular actresses on Coronation Street at the time, and she kind of got into the situation as lots of famous Coronation Street actresses do, where they think, well, I'm big on this, I can do better, and then she wanted to leave, and she actually has done pretty well. Actually, she's gone on to bigger things.
Different things.
Yeah. They announced that she was leaving. I think the day after, or a couple of days after, she won the Best Actress award in the British Soap Awards in 2004. She said, though, that she was open to a return after trying other things. She said, "I just think the time is right for me to move on and explore other acting opportunities. This is the best way forward, as it gives the writers the chance to write a terrific exit for my character." But sadly, I don't think it was that particularly terrific, because she, like I said, she went out as a bit of a different person, I think.
She was nominated for Sexiest Female and Villain of the Year in 2002 at the British Soap Awards, and she also won Best Dressed Star and Best Couple at the 2003 Inside Soap Awards. In 2004, she got the Inside Soap Sexiest Female and Most Popular Actress from Somewhere. And in 2005, she got the British Soap whatever Best Actress award. Yeah, so she was getting lots of awards, and I think she did think that it was just going to open a million doors for her. But she has actually done okay. I mean, she's in this Scott and Bailey detective drama, isn't she? And I think I think I'm right in saying that this was like her own little creation. Her and Sally Lindsay, who played Shelley Unwin, I think Scott and Bailey is like their little idea. Although where's she then? What do you mean? Where's Sally Lindsay in it? Is she in it? No, I don't think she's in it. I think it was them that came up with the idea. Although I don't think that
So it takes much of an idea to come up with two female detectives partnerships.
Not really, no.
Has been done before in other things. And the thing that I remember, I mean, I'd never watched any of that, but I did watch her in Doctor Who when she played.
She got to play possibly the greatest character of all time.
The TARDIS.
Yeah.
The human form of the TARDIS she got to play, and she did do a really good job of that. And she was it was a bit of a nutcase character. I think that was an episode I've only seen once. I need to watch that.
I always
again.
think of the TARDIS as being her now.
Do you?
Yeah, and I'm waiting for her to come back, even though I know if she was to come back, you would tell me. But I always kind of imagine I wonder what she thinks of this, or I wonder what she thinks of that.
Well, she did quite a few Doctor Who-y things as part from that, because in the Sarah Jane Adventures, which was the spin-off, she played the Mona Lisa, and I did watch that as well. It wasn't quite as good as the TARDIS episode.
Did she have no eyebrows?
I think she had no eyebrows. Yeah.
Good. That's the only thing I know about it.
She's done some theatre work as well.
And she also had a hairnet on, which I didn't realise.
When?
Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa's wearing a hairnet, and apparently that is what you would have worn at the time if you were pregnant.
Oh.
Interesting.
I didn't know that. That's an interesting fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I don't think she's ever going to come back to Coronation Street, and she said that there's not any plans to come back, but she is still friends with Simon and Kate Ford, apparently.
Never.
I think it would be very interesting to have Karen back, but I mean, it's been 10 years or so since she's been in it. I'd like to know what she's been up to. I wonder if I can imagine her going back to some religious retreat or something and
playing the Mona Lisa.
Or
being a nun.
No. Yeah, she could. Or
that would be so funny if they brought her back as just for a comedy throwaway, she is a nun, or somebody runs into her at a nunnery or something. It'd be hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know. Or could she have gone off and been really successful, and then she'll come back and Steve will wish that he'd stayed with her or something. I don't know.
Who knows?
I mean, I think it looks like they've got very long-term plans for Steve and Michelle, sadly. So I don't think Karen.
What?
Well, I just can't.
They've split up.
Well, they have split up at the moment, but I just think that they're going to keep them together. I've just got it in my head that they're going to try and keep Steve and Michelle together, unless they decide that they want to axe Kim Marsh, which is possible.
They don't seem to want to, but I don't know why.
I think they know that she's not popular, so that if they were going to axe her, then they would have done by now. But I don't know. But Karen, I'm sure Karen will fit in. And I'd like to know what she's getting up to, but I don't know whether she will. So you preferred Becky to Karen, didn't you?
Well, just because she was in it more when I watched it.
I
don't know what I would have thought if I had seen them both in equal amounts, but I love Becky.
I think I like Becky more as well. I think the fact that Becky was a little bit more bit of rough, up from the streets, and she was a bit more of a fighter than Karen, I guess. It's just so different from Michelle, because
I know, that's what I don't understand.
They were equals. I do remember though when Steve and Karen were a couple, I thought this is the perfect Coronation Street couple. I don't want them to ever leave. And then when they split up, I was like, oh, they're never going to find anybody to replace Karen. But with Becky, they somehow managed it.
Yeah.
But it's just gone spectacularly wrong with Michelle, sadly. But
well, it's a good job really that he's managed to weather the storm of going out with Michelle. It goes to show you that Steve's quite an interesting character in his own right, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. So there we go. That is our character profile on Karen McDonald. Hopefully we've got some listeners that enjoyed her as well. So if anyone's got anything that they'd like to add about Karen, do feel free to write in.